Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. As some of you may know, Trixie and Katya have done several shows together as well as a podcast called The Bold and the Beautiful. Although Trixie and Katya have often talked about their time together on season 7, they've never fully gone through the season and talked about their experiences in depth as far as I'm aware. But they recently started doing recaps of season 7 on their podcast, where they spilled some backstage tea and shared a lot of personal insights. So far they've done up to episode 7, so I thought I would go through and recap the parts that I found the most interesting. So this video will be for episodes 1 and 2. And with that, let's get started. Also, these recaps Trixie and Katya are doing are very funny, and I'll only be recapping a fraction of what they actually talk about, so make sure you go and check out the full videos on their channel, and I'll link to it in the description. Okay, so they started out by talking about episode 1 and getting cast on the show. Trixie explained that season 7 happened back in 2015, so it's been 10 years, which feels crazy, and she hasn't watched it back since it aired, so watching it back felt like, quote, Black Mirror. Talking about the audition process, Trixie shared that she had auditioned 2 years before when she was in college, so that would have been season 5, but season 7 was the first time she properly did an audition. For Katya, it was her 5th time auditioning, and she really loved her season 6 audition tape, so she felt like if she didn't get on, it wasn't meant to be. But interestingly, Katya said when season 7 casting started, the casting staff called her and asked her if she was going to audition, which Trixie was shocked about. Apparently, they wouldn't say exactly what they meant, but Katya tried to say in the most humble way that they clearly wanted her to audition, so that was quite interesting because it sounds like the show sort of implied that she should audition because she was likely to get on this year. Trixie explained that the audition process is probably worse now, but when they did it, they had to show 15 looks, 2 Snatch Game characters, 2 bits of footage of lip syncing, plus a RuPaul song, as well as answer all these questions about your personal life as part of a psych evaluation. Katya said about the psych evaluation that at the time she lived in Boston and didn't have a car, so Fina Barbatol, who is a fellow drag queen and friend of Katya's and is also her assistant, had to drive Katya all the way to Connecticut for the psych evaluation. Trixie joked that she's shocked that Katya passed the psych evaluation, but Katya said that she knew how to work it. The test was multiple choice where you had to answer from strongly agree to strongly disagree, but they would also sneak in things like, quote, sometimes my soul leaves my body, so you had to be careful when answering the questions. Trixie added that the reason they do these types of tests is because on reality TV shows in the past, people have harmed themselves or others. I did look into this a bit just because I was curious and perhaps you also might be interested as well. I found that one of the earliest examples of this type of thing happening was in 1997. There was a contestant on a Swedish show called Expedition Robinson, which was a precursor to the show Survivor. A man named Sinisa Savia was the first person to be eliminated from the island, and he took his own life a month after returning home. There have also been multiple other examples of this sort of thing happening too, on shows like Love Island, among others. But going back to Trixie and Katya, they talked about packing for Drag Race, and Trixie shared that she spent under $500 for her runway package for season 7 because she was broke and had no money at the time. She also had to borrow money as well as outfits from other people. For example, Trixie said that her bearded runway from episode 3 was a $120 gown from Amazon. So when she got to Drag Race, she was shocked when people like Miss Fame had actual custom wigs and they were almost surgically packed and vacuum sealed. It was a similar situation for Katya, and she shared that the dress that she wore for the Shakespeare challenge was borrowed from someone because she had nothing like that. The hat that she wore as part of her Abraham Lincoln look for the bearded runway, she had to carry the hat as hand luggage on the plane when she flew to film season 7, and she said this was, quote, humiliating because the lady next to her on the plane asked if she was a magician. In terms of the luggage allowance for season 7, they were allowed 5 suitcases of £50 each, but they had to pay for the luggage themselves, and the show then reimbursed them only after they got to set. Katya shared that she spent $150 for her luggage on the way there, but on the way back, the weight had increased, so it cost more, and she didn't have enough money to cover it because her account was overdrawn because she and the other queens had not been working the entire time during filming. In fact, Katya revealed that she had to beg production partway through the season to let her go to the bank to make a transfer because her account had gone so far overdrawn. Trixie said that she had less than $100 in her bank account at the time, and a friend of hers had to give her cash in an envelope so Trixie could pay for her luggage. Also, while they were filming season 7, Trixie had to move apartments, so her friends all moved her stuff for her, so that when Trixie got back from filming, she was already moved into her new apartment. They then shared some unaired tea that when they arrived in LA to film season 7, they didn't go straight to the Drag Race studio, they actually went to a different studio. They were told that someone was going to be in the room, and when they got there, it turned out it was RuPaul, and the contestants had no idea this was going to happen. So they were in a room alone, and then RuPaul came in, and he would sit down next to them and they would have a one-on-one chat about their lives. Trixie said she was shocked at how much RuPaul knew about her, and he knew specific things from her audition video, and although Trixie was terrified, it made her feel very seen. They also had to sing a song with RuPaul in a recording studio. Katya explained that she'd never been in a recording studio in her life, and she joked that at one point RuPaul said to her, quote, "Come on, white boy, find the rhythm." And the song they were singing was the theme song to Drag You, and she did it in a Russian accent.
I put a smile on my face. Open the window.
Trixie said for her, she got the song Geronimo. RuPaul apparently said she knew that Trixie has Native American heritage, which is why they gave her that song. Trixie added that in her head, she was thinking, okay, Geronimo was a Native American war hero whose wife and children were killed in front of him. And then she had to sing, quote, "Now make your booty bounce." And Trixie just didn't know what to say. But she said at least Ru actually knew something about her, so let's just go for it.
Geronimo, Geronimo, I send him to Guantanamo, but he at the Alamo, Macaulay Culkin's Home Alone.
None of these interactions ended up airing, but we have heard about these things before because Pearl once talked about it during her interview on Hey Queen, and it was quite interesting to hear a bit more about what actually happened despite the fact we never saw it. Moving on to their workroom entrances, Trixie said her entrance look was a $4 Amazon dress and then a white shirt from H&M that she wore as a cape. Also, Trixie was so unaware of anything Hollywood that she didn't even realise that the workroom isn't a real room, it's just fake walls on a soundstage, and that was the first thing she noticed when she walked in. She also said she had a moment where she considered running away to get out of it because she was so scared and had imposter syndrome, and Katya said she felt the exact same way. Then, for the first runway, it was a resort wear that tears away to a nude illusion. Trixie didn't even know what resort wear was because you can't Google anything when you're there, and her only frame of reference was when people go on vacation to Disneyland. Katya said she thought that you actually had to be naked, which is why she wasn't wearing a bodysuit, because they told them that they would blur out their bits. Trixie asked if Katya flashed her actual butt when she bent over in front of the judges, but Katya said she was wearing a beige thong. They also mentioned the part later on the main stage when some of the queens were asked which queen had left the least impression on them, and Kennedy Davenport said Trixie, even though Trixie was not on stage at the time, and Trixie didn't realise that Kennedy had said her name until she watched it in the episode when it aired. Also, interestingly, Trixie said on season 7, she and Kennedy just didn't know each other that well, but the two of them are very close now. Which is interesting because a few years ago, Kennedy did an interview with Joseph Shepherd, and she said that after some of the comments Trixie made about her on All Stars 3, like saying that Kennedy's entrance look was ugly, Kennedy, quote, doesn't F with Trixie, and she was really mad at Trixie and felt like she was betrayed because Trixie hadn't told Kennedy that she was going to read her in the confessionals. And more recently, Kennedy appeared on Mistress Isabel Brooks's YouTube channel and talked more about the feud. Kennedy explained that she was annoyed that Trixie never gave her a heads up for the fact that she had been reading her, especially because she and Trixie became really close after the show and they talked all the time. Kennedy even said that they were once booked together at a gig and she told Trixie to stay away from her.
And we was booked. The last episode, we were all booked together. And I told her to stay away from me because I was going to fight her.
However, Kennedy later said that she and Trixie have since spoken and reconciled. Okay, moving on to episode 2, and one quick thing they mentioned was, Trixie said people may not know this, but when they do the lip syncs, they actually do the full versions of the songs, which are sometimes 5 minutes long, and then they cut the footage down in the episode. Often there are really long intros to the songs, so the queens are just standing there waiting for the actual song to start, and a lot of it then gets cut out. I found this interesting because I believe that other queens in the past have said that they get given a shorter version of the song they have to learn right from the start rather than the full-length version. So I actually reached out to a few Drag Race queens that I know and I asked them what their experience was. They said that on the older US seasons, they performed the full-length songs and then they got cut down in the edit. But then on the more recent All-Star seasons, they got given a shortened version of the song from the start, and they also got given the songs a lot longer in advance, whereas on the regular seasons they don't. And then for the international seasons, they said they got given a shortened version of the song straight away, but it got cut down even more in the edit. Anyway, moving on, and Katya explained that when you're watching the episode, it looks like everything happens really quickly. But for example, when they're in the workroom, they have to reposition the cameras to capture them walking in the workroom. Then they have to stop and repo the cameras for when the queens are walking around to the table. Then, when RuPaul walks in, they have to repo the cameras again. So in reality, it takes multiple hours to film just those segments. On a similar note, Trixie said that when you're on the runway getting the judges' critiques, people may not know that each judge spends about 5 minutes critiquing each queen. So the judges' critiques often take hours and hours to film, even though they only show about 30 seconds per queen in the episode. This means that in reality, it's a lot more intense for the queens when they're on stage because we as the audience don't always see all of the critiques, and sometimes the critiques are very harsh, but they just don't show them. For example, as some of you may remember because I have talked about this on my channel before, Adore Delano has said that when she was on All Stars 2, one of the main reasons she decided to quit is because of the guest judge Raven Simonier, who made a really, quote, gross critique to her. I found a screenshot on Reddit of a tweet Adore made at the time where she shared that Raven said that Adore looked like a, quote, pre-rehab Demi Lovato, which offended Adore because her brother had just been through rehab. And I thought this was just interesting context because it shows firstly why Adore felt the way that she did and why she ended up quitting, but it also shows that the queens often might react a certain way because the critiques are very harsh but we just don't always see them. Going back to Trixie and Katya, they talked more about the mini challenge in episode 2, where they got blown in the face by a leaf blower, and the guest judge was Moby the musician. Katya said apparently Moby was on the soundstage doing something else and he's friends with RuPaul, so Katya thinks that they just asked him to be on the show because he was on stage at the time, because it was a bit random that he was there. They also mentioned Max, and that even out of drag she had a fake accent, which they had never experienced before, and it was really weird. Trixie shared that she and Max went to college together, they did musicals together, and they also did ballet together, so they knew each other really well, even though that wasn't necessarily shown in the show. But Trixie had never heard Max speak like that before, so she was really gagged. But now, looking back on it, it's sort of a bit like when celebrities make their real lives into a persona, a bit like Lana Del Rey. They moved on to the challenge for that week, which was the Glamazonian Airways Rusical. Katya was in the bottom that week because she didn't know the words to her spoken word part, and she said that she had, quote, generational trauma. Katya also said she's not joking when she says she wanted to take her own life the night before because she knew she was going to do badly. But she said that because she was on a lower floor in the hotel, it wouldn't have worked if she jumped out of the window, but if she had been on a higher floor, she would have. Trixie mentioned that the issue was that Katya's monologue wasn't a straight monologue, it was AAVE, which stands for African American Vernacular English.
I'm Miss Valerie Valentine. I'm your economist/coach stewardess. You could call me a flight attendant, but I don't care for that word attendant because it makes it sound like I'm going to wait on somebody. I'm not. I appreciate your attention at this time. We should be taking off shortly.
Katya said nowadays it's inappropriate because she's a white person in a black finger wave wig doing, quote, LaQuisha, and this would not happen today. And Katya would obviously not have made that choice for herself voluntarily. Trixie then said, what you probably don't think about is the queens get up super early to film the stuff in the workroom, so by the time they filmed the Glamazonian Airways part, it was probably around 10 in the morning and the queens were all stone cold sober doing it. They also do the performance twice so they can film from all the different angles, which means that Katya had to do her performance twice, even though she knew that she bombed it so badly, and she said it was even more awkward the second time because the judges were looking at her even more. But because the other queens like Trixie were standing behind Katya, they didn't realise that Katya was bombing because they couldn't see what she was doing. Katya repeated that she really wanted to end her life in that moment, but Trixie said in reality it's really not that bad because the queens don't get given enough time to do anything. Katya shared that she was up all night in her hotel room trying to memorise the monologue, but then at midnight she decided to learn the lyrics to the lip sync song because she had never heard it before. So she learnt the song Twist of Fate by Olivia Newton-John in just a few hours the night before the performance. They then mentioned that Katya was also so high drama in her confessionals and she was always leaning towards the camera. But Katya said every time she said anything, the producers would say that she needed to say it again but with more energy, which is why she ended up being so dramatic. Trixie and Katya confirmed that they had the same story producer who was named Mish, and also the same camera operator named Sarge, who was Peppermint's makeover partner named Wintergreen. And apparently they said that they were both really nice and it felt like a really safe space. But if you've watched my Roscoe's recaps recently, you'll know that Roxy Andrews called out Mish by name and said how bad she is, and apparently a lot of queens refuse to work with Mish and thinks that she's the one who leaks information about the season. So I just found it interesting that Trixie and Katya said they loved Mish, whereas Roxy said that she and other queens don't like her and have refused to work with her. Moving on to the runway for that episode, and the category was Jet Set Eleganza. Katya said she and Trixie were the only two who, quote, dressed as the help because they were flight attendants. They both said that they had never flown first class, so they had no idea what Jet Set Eleganza meant. Also, Katya said that she made her outfit and it did have large stones on it, but you couldn't see them on camera. Also, later on, all the stones came off when she was sitting on the untucked couch, and each stone cost around $10. Katya said that Olivia Newton-John, who was the guest judge for that episode, talked so quietly that no one could hear her, and when the queens came back to Untucked, all the queens said that they had not heard a single word she said. Also, Katya added that they didn't include it in the episode, but during the judges' critiques, she apologised so profusely for her bad performance in Glamazonian Airways that it was, quote, kind of pathetic, which may be why they didn't show it. They moved on to the lip sync between Katya and Sasha Bell, and Katya said she knew she was going to win, and it was also her only displayable talent that she got to show on the season. Trixie said that watching season 7 back, she's reminded that both she and Katya were so, quote, mid and forgettable, and to be honest, neither of them were very good, which Katya agreed with. They also quickly talked about the promo shoot for season 7 and how bad it was, because it was just a plain white wall, they got no direction at all, and compared to season 6's promo, it was just so bad. The way they shot the promo was that 7 of the queens did it in the morning, and then 7 queens did it in the afternoon, and Trixie and Katya were in different groups. The other interesting thing is that they did not get to choose their own outfits for the promo. Trixie shared that she did bring an outfit for the promo, but they told her it was ugly, and they made her wear something else out of the outfits provided. Katya said she hates her promo outfit and none of the options that they had on set were her style, but she ended up looking like a, quote, Willem impersonator. Katya also said both of her promos were so bad and she got the worst 2 promos of the entire franchise. Because on All Stars 2, the promo was such an afterthought and they didn't get any help with it. They finished by answering a Twitter question, which was, how are the confessionals filmed? Katya said for season 7, after they've done the runway part, they have to get out of drag and they use Elbaline to take their makeup off, which is a moisturising cleanser. Then they go straight into the confessionals, so whoever is ready and de-dragged first does their confessionals first, and they do it for about an hour. Trixie said on All Stars 3, instead of doing them at the end of the day, they did them the next morning before they started shooting, and because Trixie was always ready on time, she would be the one doing it first at 7:30 in the morning. Katya said on All Stars 2, they did the confessionals at the weekends, so they would have to go in for about 4 hours and try and remember everything that had happened throughout the entire week, and she said although it did feel more comfortable doing it at the weekends, it kind of made it feel a little bit less authentic because you were always trying to remember what happened earlier in the week on every day. So there you go, there was a recap of Trixie and Katya reviewing Season 7 for episodes 1 and 2. There's also a lot of material for the other episodes of Season 7, so let me know if you enjoyed this video and you want me to keep doing it for the rest of the season, because some of the future episodes also have some pretty interesting tea. If you'd like to get exclusive content, personalised videos, early access, as well as many other amazing benefits, please consider joining my Patreon. It's a cheap and easy way to support my channel, and it does make a huge difference, and if you're interested, I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to take an opportunity to say thank you so much to all of my incredible Patreon members. I love this community so much and I'm beyond grateful for all of your support. You really do make a massive difference to my channel, so thank you all so much. Please make sure you give this video a like and a comment because it really does make a huge difference to increase the engagement and promote this video in the algorithm. And please make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's a free way to support the channel and it does make a big difference. So please help me get to my goal of 150k subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you'll join me again in the future for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. Thank you so much. Bye.